If you're in the mood for some more Frank Turek, here are his dumb ideas about gay marriage.
The reason the state is involved in marriage is to perpetuate and stabilize society. That's the reason. I mean, we love all sorts of people in our lives, and we don't call those relationships marriage, or the government doesn't call those relationships marriage. Right. The only reason the government says that marriage between a man and a woman is going to be considered marriage is because it brings great benefits to society.
Same-sex marriage brings many of those same benefits. Married people commit fewer crimes and they pool their financial and social resources. If this is the case for traditional married couples, why wouldn't it be true of same-sex married couples? But even if it weren't true of same-sex couples, why is that a reason to not recognize same-sex marriages? What harm would that recognition do? How would allowing gay couples to marry undermine the benefits that marriage provides to society? Not recognizing same-sex marriages sends the message that romantic relationships between people of the same gender are not as worthy of respect and recognition as relationships between people of opposite genders. And that message harms people, but I don't see how recognizing same-sex marriage harms anyone.
Here's the fundamental problem. If you equate same-sex relationships with opposite-sex relationships and call them marriage, what you're doing is you're telling society that marriage has nothing to do with children.
No, you're not telling them that marriage has nothing to do with children. You're telling them that if you get married, children are optional, which most people already know. If you think marriage is good for children, you have nothing to worry about. Letting gay couples marry does not undermine that idea in any way whatsoever. The fact that children are optional for married couples says absolutely nothing against the idea that marriage is beneficial for children.
Because gender is irrelevant to marriage at that point. You see, where same-sex marriage is put into place, you don't have two types of marriage. You don't have same-sex marriage and natural marriage.
That's because there's no such fucking thing as natural marriage. Saying that marriage is a natural phenomenon is like saying bar mitzvahs are natural phenomena.
You just have genderless marriage. And so marriage is seen by society as something that has nothing to do with children. And when marriage has nothing to do with children, there's no institution in society to protect children.
Protect them from what? I'm not sure what Turek has in mind here, but let's say that marriage does protect children. How does the fact that some married couples don't have children, or even can't have children, prevent marriage from offering that protection? Turek is setting up a false dichotomy here. He seems to think that marriage must either be exclusively devoted to the welfare of children, or the benefits marriage has for children will somehow magically vanish. Saying that marriage is not exclusively aimed at the welfare of children is not the same as saying that it has nothing to do with children. Marriage can do more than one job. It can offer more than one benefit to society. It can protect children while benefiting us in other ways as well.
That's the ultimate problem, Bobby. And the problem becomes a bigger issue when you consider that the law is a great teacher. Many people think whatever is legal is moral and whatever is illegal is immoral. So if you teach people that heterosexual and homosexual relationships are equally the same in terms of marriage, then you're teaching them that marriage is just about coupling. It's just about the romantic desires of adults. And so when that happens, society has lost the fundamental brick in the foundation of civilization. The fundamental brick is the biological two-parent family. If society does not say that's the special relationship, then society is ultimately going to crumble. When the bricks of a building begin to crumble at its foundation, the whole building comes down.
I really don't see how you get from A to B here. How do you get from people being okay with gay couples marrying to the complete ruin of civilization? Let's consider the worst case scenario. Let's say that through some fucking hocus pocus that is apparently obvious to some Christians, but a complete fucking mystery to me, allowing same-sex marriage leads to fewer straight couples getting married. I have actually heard people make this argument. I would consider that a bad thing, but I would not be so hyperbolic as to assert that it would lead to the collapse of civilization itself. How does that part happen? I think this whole fixation around children is disingenuous. I think opponents of same-sex marriage know that we don't need to devote marriage exclusively to the purpose of procreation in order to consider it valuable. A Catholic priest once told me about another priest who was asked to perform a wedding for a couple who were in their 80s. This priest refused to perform the ceremony because he believed that marriage was about children, and since these octogenarians can't have children, they should not be permitted to marry. Other Catholics disagreed, and my understanding of the official church position is that sterility is not an impediment to marriage. But if Turek is right that same-sex marriage undermines the institution's ability to serve the interests of children because it makes people believe that reproduction is not the paramount concern of marriage, then wouldn't allowing postmenopausal women to marry send that same message? I think this priest who didn't want the elderly folks to marry was a douche, but at least he was consistent. The folks who oppose same-sex marriage for the reasons that Turek does, but who are still okay with infertile people getting married, are being inconsistent. And I think their inconsistency is evidence that they don't really oppose same-sex marriage for the reasons they say they do.